Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ray Malesio, and I work with the results team as part of the Office of Migrant Education contract. This is a re-recording of the webinar originally presented on Wednesday, May 21st, 2014. This re-recording is being made to address technical difficulties that happened during the original broadcast. Today, we're going to be discussing interstate coordination and collaboration. The the mission of the Office of Migrant Education is to provide leadership, technical assistance, and financial support to improve the educational opportunities and academic success of migrant children, youth, agricultural workers, fishers, and their families. Under that guidance from the Office of Migrant Education, um, we want to talk about the different aspects involving interstate and interstate coordination and collaboration. Just to make sure, this webinar it's produced under contract with the uh, results team, and by no means is there's no endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, services, or anything mentioned, any other services mentioned during this webinar. So during this workshop, what we're going to be discussing is interstate coordination and collaboration. We want to talk about the objectives of this workshop will include to share the resources and the knowledge across the different migrant education programs on this topic. We will try to provide some historical perspective uh, and research regarding how interstate coordination started and migrant education program and the role it has, and discussing a little bit about how to problem solve the issues addressing migrant youth and families in terms of interstate coordination. Um, so we can try to overcome some of the barriers that happen that occur for this population. This slide basically is discussing the different statutes and regulations that affect interstate coordination and what authorize interstate coordination as part of the efforts and services and activities in the migrant education program. So one of the very first things we want to do is we want to ask the participants on the webinar, uh, what does interstate coordination means to you? What when you think of interstate coordination, what is it exemplifies? What are the different topics that come to mind, the different statements that come to mind? And what we're asking people is to type their responses in the chat box and to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to see their comments. Now, these were some of the comments that we received in the chat box that were commented by the different individuals who were participating in the webinar. And as you can see, what does interstate coordination mean? If you read through some of these comments, it involves states working together to help migrant kids, states and locals working together to ensure migrant children have continuity of instruction, working with other states to make sure migrant students have as little interruption as possible. You see that it's a very interstate coordination is very important to helping migrant students achieve success and working together to help break down the barriers for our migrant students. Some of the comments also included using student data to inform decisions, so to inform program planning on how states can share resources. The states that share students can talk together and plan how they're going to provide services to this population. And again, you see again the statement of working together to benefit migrant children. We part of the also some of the additional comments, as you can see, was in terms of what interstate coordination means to the people who were listening to the webinar, to the live broadcast. Addressed a lot about states working in collaboration, states discussing together, talking together about different aspects of how they can serve children better, how they can look at the needs of the children so they can provide more of a coordinated effort to help these kids to provide to minimize to provide services that will minimize the interrupted schooling for this population. According to the OME guidance, the guidance from the Office of Migrant Education, interstate coordination, it refers to the activities that two or more states take, they are become engaged in order to improve the education of migrant children who move between those states. That's the guidance, the non-regulatory guidance, and you can find that in page 84 of the document. So you can see this. It talks the instruction, the comment from the guidance goes along with very strongly with what some of the comments of people were responding in the chat box. Now, this definition of what is interstate coordination, this comes actually from practitioners in the field, from research. It's like interstate coordination makes it possible for states to work together. You see this comment of working together, states working together in order to appropriately place children in education programs, as well as to design programs that assist with credit accrual, continuity of instruction, records transfer. What is interesting is, this is a comment from 2002 that we have here. One of the things that we did for this webinar is that we interviewed and solicited video clips from different individuals across the country that will talk to us about interstate coordination. And but we're going to want to try to what we want to accomplish now, what we want to share now, it's some of these videos and some of this comments from the different coordinators. So I'm going to go ahead and play this first slide for you to look, and we'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Maria Garcia Guzman, Director of the Texas Migrant Interstate Program, a project for the Texas Education Agency. Some of the strategies that work best when conducting interstate coordination are continuous and constant communications, effective exchange of critical student information, and out-of-state summer programs.
As you can see, that what Maria Garcia Guzman, she's the director of the Texas Migrant Interstate Program. She's talking about the continuous and constant communication. Also, in addition, that's what's very important is the effective exchange of critical student information, and it's very important for states who have out-of-state, the states that provide summer programs, that they coordinate so the kids who that visit their states actually are able to provide services to the children that will be beneficial to those kids as they return to their home base. Let's also look at the next comment, the next audio clip from Omar Chavez. He's the director of Region 1 down in Texas. Region 1 in Texas is, has an incredibly large number of migrant children. Migrant children in Region 1, Texas, travel to almost 47 states, mostly central states, and talking about close to 30,000 migrant kids. So let's see what his perspective.
What's the importance of interstate coordination for you?
Well, it's for me, it's important to have that coordination because it helps us establish a good relationship between states. Also, it helps establish good programming coordination for our kids who are very much in need to continue their education without any type of disruption, without any type of fragmentation. That's why it's so important for me, for kids to come back and know.
Again, we see the comment about how it's important to establish relationship between states, establish good communication, so coordination for coordination for for the services for these students to take place without disruption. And I like this comment in the end there where he talks about how for kids to come back and know that there was little that they missed, that they really, that they don't feel this disruption caused because of their migration. The third comment is from Angela Brands-Paul, the director of the Montana Migrant Education Program, and again, want to look at the different perspectives that she brings into this.
Here in Montana, we assist school districts by coordinating educational records for placement of migrant students in school programs, and by continuing to work through the consortium incentive grants to provide instructional continuity and support in math, literacy, technology, and secondary and out-of-school youth options. For migrant students enrolling late in Montana or leaving Montana schools early, we provide districts with educational options, programs such as PASS or other online curricula accepted by the LEAs, and communicate with the state where the student is moving to alert them of student needs. Recently, for example, in an unusual situation, a migrant secondary student in a small Montana rural district who is eligible for the migrant program based on his family's migration to Alaska for fishing needed assistance in obtaining portable coursework and credit counseling prior to his move to Alaska. We worked with the Montana district personnel and notified the Alaska SEA that the student was migrating, and we provided his family contact information. In this situation, the Montana MEP acted as a sending state, which is unusual for us. The usual pattern for Montana is to be a receiving state and to work with sending states on well-planned summer programs that our shared students will benefit from.
So again, a lot of the talk and a lot of the comments have to do with coordinating efforts, coordinating educational records, communicating with the districts where the students are traveling to and from. This is what's extremely important in regarding interstate coordination, which of course it's it goes with the title, goes with the name. What I'd like to do next is, as part of the preparation for this webinar, is like we try to look at what were the origins or the starts of interstate coordination. How did this this came into play? So this next few slides will talk a little bit about the historical perspective of interstate coordination, trying to discuss what were the earlier ideas or topics regarding interstate coordination. How did this start? How did the concept actually came to mind or was created within the migrant education community? And what was interesting is that these early studies did not actually mention interstate coordination because the concept wasn't thought of. It talked more about the problems faced by children because of the lack of continuity and how this lack of continuity hurt these kids. So some of the early research that we were able to find and had to do with talked about the awareness of this discontinuity of services, and then it discussed about teachers not being prepared to do a rapid diagnosis on students, and they had difficulties in placing students in the appropriate grades and the appropriate classrooms because they lacked records. Some of the studies also mentioned how some personal notes that were included that the kids brought with them from the teachers where they had been working with previously in other states were very helpful. So this, you can see here how these were like the early steps or the early stages of trying to account for the efforts that would try to account for the lack of continuity. In 1964, around 1964, the National Committee on the Education of Migrant Children was created as a subset of the as created as part of the efforts towards helping migrant kids, and they were asked mostly to talk about how to develop a plan that will help with the for coordination and continuity of education for migrant children. This is the same group that resulted from the first national migrant conference in San Luis, and what they did is that they provided the early agreements that will foster the language and the discussion that gave interstate coordination and identity. In this group, then in 1965, they met in Florida, in Avon Park, Florida, and they discussed what will be, they tried to establish some of the roadmap or the guidelines or the parameters of how we're going to discuss interstate coordination within the migrant community. And they talked about cooperation and coordination for planning and programming of services for migrant children, both on interstate and interstate and inter-area basis. Their recommendations then in 1965, their recommendations were that the program should look into establishing an interstate clearinghouse, that this clearinghouse will have all information on the different curriculum, teaching materials, techniques, school locations, school openings, contacts. This clearinghouse will have all this information that will be available for people who were working with migrant kids, migrant students, that they will be able to find and coordinate and contact these different places. Also the recommendations from the committee were that there should be more a better use of the different school and health records, a more effective use. There were some concerns at the time that this data was not being used appropriately, and there was a bigger interest in making sure that to use the data in an effective manner to help kids to be able to place them, to avoid, again, if we had the immunization records, the kids will be able to be enrolled in school and things like that. There was a lot of attention. That one of the recommendations that was that more attention should be given to continuity based on their home-based schools. In other words, rather than trying to, if the kids who were moving from Texas to, let's say, Michigan, instead of trying to help these kids graduate from Michigan, that effort should be made to try to help these kids graduate from Texas, because this is where they were traveling from in the first place. Then to talk about the use of a mobile team approach. This was one of the things that early on there were more efforts regarding interstate coordination, more interstate coordination efforts like this, where you would see teachers and counselors traveling up north, let's sort of say at the same places where the migrant families were going, in order to try to prepare the land, let's say, or get things going for the services that will be needed by the kids, making sure there will be some sort of continuity in terms of what educational goals were to be provided for migrant kids in the home-based state. So you will see this mobile team approach being used. In 1992, then, as we continue looking at research, the report from the National Commission on Migrant Children, the report, they looked at different aspects and issues regarding migrant children, and the commission developed or prepared their report in 1992. It was called Invisible Children, a report of migrant education in the United States. And this report involved educators and advocates from many places in the country, and the report summarized 3 years of study and consultation in an effort to try to improve the education of migrant children. And even though the commission was established in 1989, the report came out in 1992, and these were some of the things that they some of their comments regarding interstate communication, interstate coordination, were that they realized, they recognized that information is exchanged between programs in order to reduce the problems encountered by the children due to their migration. In addition, they also the commission also recognized that the communication was both formal and informal. It all depended on how the different partners and the different individuals who were playing or who were uh, involved in the services to children. So it all depended on who the number of kids who were traveling from one state to another. It will influence the efforts that were made in order between those two states in order to establish coordination. Another study uses an example of interstate coordination of something that was found in research in a report entitled Handbook of Effective Migrant Education Practices, Volume 1 Findings. This was prepared by the United States Department of Education in 1990. It talked about the different coordination efforts that were developed to address continuity of services. And they talked about this one example about how the interstate coordination was occurring at the time in the 1990s, late 1980s actually, and it was a three-state agreement between Texas, Illinois, and Wisconsin, and how their agreement had an emphasis on the curriculum and the materials used for instruction for students in Illinois and Wisconsin that came from Texas. So these kids were using the same textbooks, and the secondary kids who were coming from Texas to these two places were receiving instruction. The secondary students were receiving instruction in English and math, social studies, and in GED preparation, different additional instruction that will help them graduate from school. Because again, that was the goal. It was trying to minimize the disruption caused, minimize the efforts caused by the disruption of the migration. So this is just one of the many examples that were occurring at the time. And also, what was interesting is like staff from Illinois will travel to Texas and vice versa to